I'm Frank from Canadian Tropicals, and welcome to my second episode. Last time I did a tour of the UBC Botanical Gardens, and this time I'm just going to do a tour of my garden to just kind of give you an idea of the type of plants that I'll be covering on this channel. I'm not going to go into any depth on the plants. I will be doing a plant profile on each of the plants in future videos. So today is just kind of a look at the pretty plant video. So let's go. To start, I'll start with our citrus collection on our deck. I don't sell citrus, but my wife likes the dark green colors of the leaves. I like the fruit. So we compromised and we have a citrus collection we've had for a few years now. This is a calamandan. If you like marmalade, this plant is a heavy producer for marmalade. Some of the citrus I've grown from seed. Yes, it will take years to produce fruit, but that's part of the fun. It's just seeing what happens after all those years. Finger lime, grown from seed. Another is a clementine from seed. Grapefruit. A lot of people don't realize this, but grapefruit is called grapefruit because it grows in clusters. Then you've got some pomelos happening. Yes, you can grow these fruit in British Columbia without a greenhouse. Believe it or not, that is a Cavendish banana. That's the only plant that will actually go in the house during the winter. All of the citrus, they stay out on the deck with the exception for a few days of the year. But I'll be covering how I winter protect my citrus in a separate video. But believe it or not, they can be out here in the snow. They're fine. Navel orange. Got some oranges happening there. Spanish flag. Hummingbirds love this plant. Mandarin orange. It was covered in blossoms in the spring, and then we got hit by a really hot spell and it dropped all of its fruit. So gonna have to wait till next year. I still have a couple of mandarin oranges on it, but basically I'll have to wait till next year for a good crop. Australian finger lime is a new addition to our collection. I find the fruit is it does come out in those little pellet forms. It's they're crunchy almost, best way to describe it when you eat it. And so I can see them going on things like sushi. As a fruit on its own, I honestly don't care for it. But it does make a good garnish. Beer's lime. And Meyer lemon. Now, my garden is down there. And in the background, I've got all my fruit trees. And between those and the fence are my grapes. Now, where I am in relation to the world is off in the distance there, you'll see a valley. That valley is Abbotsford. I'm in Mission. To the right of that is Abbotsford City. If you watch Fraser Valley Rose Gardens channel, they are in Desroches, which is directly left of us. In the background of that valley on clear days, you can see Mount Baker, which is in Washington State. However, this is mid-September, so there's a combination of haze from smoke and still a little bit of fog residue this morning. The two combined, you can barely make out the mountain this time of year. But in the spring, we get a great view of Mount Baker. So last video, I did the UBC Botanical Gardens. They're a zone 9. They're located right on the ocean front. They get the warm Pacific air coming in at winter, which helps keep them a couple of degrees warmer than us during the winter. In the summer, opposite effect, we're a couple of degrees warmer than they are in the summer. Now, but even though I'm a zone 8, where it really hits us hard, I'm just going to switch back to the valley view here. So where we get hit hard is during the winter, when the Arctic outflows come in, the Arctic winds come down through Chilliwack, and then they come through the valley, and we have an open view to that valley, and the winds just sweep right up straight towards our place. So last year, we got -16, UBC got -16, but at the same time, we had wind chills dropping us to -25. That is definitely not a zone 8 temperature, but when it comes time to the winter, I'll be talking about how to protect your plants if you are on the east end of this valley, to make sure that you're still that zone 8. This is my small succulent collection. Just found something to do with the dry portion of the garden. Now, this is about a 15-foot tall eucalyptus gunnii. It can handle -12 without a problem. -16, it struggles. But I was able to get it to survive with just some basic wind protection. And this is what I was talking about in the last video. This is a eucalyptus gunnii, but the branches on here are square. And the leaves are much more land-shaped than other eucalyptus gunnii. But this is a eucalyptus gunnii. Down below it, I've got some kangaroo paws. I've got a yellow one, a red one. This is mid-September, so I'm not deadheading anymore. I'm just going to, if I deadheaded, they would push up a lot more blooms. A callistemon Little John. So far, I'm finding that will not survive zone 8 winters, even though they claim it does. But it's a dwarf plant. It makes an excellent container plant. And this is a newly planted eucalyptus parvifolia. And this is a callistemon veridifolis. I'm testing it this winter. It's a zone 8, but -16 is a little much for it. So I'm going to see how it handles the next few winters. And I've got a tomato plant here. Honestly, this is an experiment just to see how cold hardy this plant actually is. It's self-seeded, and those seeds sprouted after -25 wind chill with no protection. So I'm curious to see how this plant ends up developing. But so far, tomatoes on it look good. This is a snowdrop maypop vine. I'm really disappointed with the maypops. This one is blooming. It's the first year it's in its ground. I have a regular maypop that's planted, and it's still pushing up green growth, but it's only had 1 or 2 flowers all season. So very disappointed with the production of the maypops in the long run. And once they're in the ground, they send up shoots everywhere, so they become very hard to control. I'm on a terraced ground, so I have some control over where these plants grow, but if you just plant these in a field, you've got an invasive weed. So be very careful with maypops. I have to apologize. At the very beginning of summer, I broke my arm, combined with other health issues. I literally have not been able to get into the garden to anything other than just water the plants. So weeds have taken over. So I have a lot of work now to try and get this garden back to presentable form and remove all these weeds and the blackberry bushes that are taking over. This is an assortment of baby eucalyptus that I sell. Said I'll be doing plant profiles on each one, so I'm not going to go over in depth what they are. Bird of paradise, Jubea chilensis palm. This one is a dwarf. Oh, sorry, this one is a dwarf. It's only literally my hand height. It's literally on my hand height. I specifically chose a dwarf out of my seedlings because it's a small area. I didn't want a full-size Jubea chilensis in the long run to overpower and lose my walkway, so I'm hoping this one stays dwarf long run. It survived the minus 16 winter with just a little bit of protection. It did fine. And these are some of my callistemons. As I mentioned in the previous video, I'm growing about 40 varieties of callistemon, and I test each one to try and see which ones are actually cold hardy. This is a callistemon pallidus. It was a beautiful plant last year, and we just got that extra bit of cold that literally just knocked it down to the ground, and it's slowly coming back. This particular one has proven more cold hardy than other ones that I had planted, which never made it back. They just completely died. Tucked in here is Leptospermum rupestre. It is also called the alpine tea tree. It's from a whole group of leptospermum, which are all called tea trees. This is probably one of my favorite eucalyptus, Eucalyptus albida. It has these beautiful white leaves, and it grows as a mallee, so it grows as multiple stems from the base, and it only in the ground, it'll only max out at about 12, 15 feet tall. In a pot, it's a perfect size as a container specimen. It stays small enough you can even have it inside your house. So it's probably one of my favorite. And got more varieties of callistemon happening here. This is a tree that's called the dead man's finger. I do sell these. That produces a blue bean-like fruit, which inside it's got a bean-like shell, and inside it has a gelatinous fruit. So we've got Eucalyptus gunnii. I use strawberries. Same problem is this has gotten out of control during the summer. I normally have the strawberries just planted along the edge, and as I go by, I can harvest them. But of course, with no control in the summer, they've just taken over. There's a pomegranate wonderful. Pomegranate wonderful is not cold hardy at all, so it has to stay in a pot and be protected during the winter. The nice thing is that it goes dormant, so it can, once it loses its leaves, you can just throw it in an unheated garage and forget about it until spring. This is a callistemon rigidus. I showed these at the UBC Botanical Gardens. This is an upright form, and this one here wants to grow more sprawling. In between them, I've got a babico, which is basically a cold hardy variety of papaya. That is an acacia tree, and next to it is a Australian frangipani. It had some nitrogen issues while I was sick, so I'm slowly bringing it back to health and getting rid of the yellow that appears on its leaves. It seems to be doing quite nicely now. It's quite happy. Leucodendron linifolium. And next to it, Leucodendron inignotium. Next to it is a Banksia. The Banksias, they are much more iron requirement. You can see some chlorosis happening on the leaves. So if you're growing Banksia, keep that in mind that most of them, they need a lot of iron in the soil. And this is a Australian cordyline. It's its second year in the ground. I was able to get it through the -16 winter, and it's doing quite nicely. Next to it is a Grevillea Victoria. As I pointed out at the UBC Botanical Gardens, this started off, when I put it in the ground in the spring, it was only about this tall, and this is all this year's growth. It just grew like crazy. This is a Leucodendron argenteum. This will grow into a tree, so that's why it's in the larger pot, and it's not cold hardy, so it's in a double pot so that I can move it to come winter. A couple of Suriname cherries. I will eventually be selling these. However, they still haven't produced fruit yet, so I'm going to wait until they produce fruit before I do any cuttings off of those. Arbutus oneto. I have tried multiple times. This is going to be my last year at attempting to grow this, even with protection. It doesn't like anything colder than -12. Nerigami kumquat, even though it's end of September, it's still pushing out new blossoms. And we have a young eucalyptus passiflora. This is an Acacia gloptera. This one has a interesting bloom pattern. What will happen is when it does bloom, right on the branches, the little blossoms will pop up. This is a pomegranate. This particular pomegranate I have grown from seed. I'm waiting to see what the fruit it produces is like. But even if it produces bad fruit, it's going to make an excellent rootstock, because this plant has survived the -16, -25 wind chill quite well. It doesn't even lose its leaves until the first Arctic outflow comes through. Next to it is the Eucalyptus pulverulenta. And down there is a yuzu lemon. I have had no luck growing those, even with protection in the wintertime. People claim they're a zone 8. Zone 8B, maybe, but not a zone 8A. This is an autumn olive. I was very disappointed in the spring. It was filled with fruit, and then we had that warm spell, and it just dropped all its fruit in a matter of days. This is the regular passiflora, regular maypop, should say. And it was in the ground last year. It came back this year. As you can see, it's just starting to bloom now, and it's mid-September. Any fruit it does produce is not going to be ready before the plant dies back. And then I've got some large red hot fire pokers, South African plant. And next to it, down here, I've got a Phoenix sylvestris. It's an experiment to see will it survive the winter outdoors here. It has liked the summer outdoors here. It's pushing a second leaf now. But this is what I was saying about maypops. Once they're in the ground, they will just shoot up everywhere, and you're constantly dealing with these shoots. So it can be quite an invasive plant. So be very careful. Another Leucadendron linifolium. Next to it is a Duchess protea. And then here we've got Protea venusta, another Duchess protea. These plants will bloom when they're about 3 feet tall. So they make an excellent plant for patios. This is another Protea venusta. This one has proven to be very phosphorus sensitive. Not like these are both planted at the same time, and this one was almost completely killed off because of phosphorus, but I noticed it, corrected in time, so it's coming back. And this is also a Protea venusta. You can see the huge difference in forms that happen. This one wants to be more of a twisted branch plant, whereas this one wants to have nice straight branches, perfect for cut flowers. Next to another Duchess protea is Protea coronata. These were just planted, so these are only 1-year-old plants here. And then we have an assortment of younger proteas that I've put in my collection. So people who say you can't grow proteas in British Columbia, dead wrong. You just have to grow them in pots. And this is a Protea nana. This will stay a relatively small plant, perfect as an apartment plant. These are cuttings of a citrus that I grew from seed. What happened was I grew from seed a giant tree. It got too big for the deck, and it proved to be very cold hardy. It survived -7, no protection, in a pot. So I took it, I put it out in the ground, and then we had that -16 weather, and bang, it did it in. So fortunately I got some cuttings before it died, and we'll try again one day. There's a dwarf Banksia media. Next to it is a Banksia marginata. And on the other side is a Banksia spinulosa. Now the Banksia marginata was growing at UBC until we had the -16. So that seemed to be kind of its threshold. It survived the -12, -14. So I'm going to try and plant these in the ground next to the house. And hopefully that will give them just that little bit of extra warmth and protection that they need to survive outdoors here. But we'll find out this winter. Now, like I said, broken arm, no lawn mowing happened. Standard fruit trees, apples, pears, plums. Behind them you'll see the grapevines. My persimmons Nikita, this is the first year that it will be producing fruit, so I'm eager to find out what its fruit is like. An in-ground loquat. The -16 was just too cold for it. It killed it back, but it regrew nicely. Pawpaws, very slow growing. I think they've been in the ground 4 years now, and they've just had a couple of blossoms on them, still waiting for them to produce fruit. Black mulberry. Illinois mulberry. Another Duchess protea eczema. One has a spider now living at the top. I'm just going to let it stay there until winter, and then I'll clean out that web. This one bloomed this year. You can see it clipped off, and now it's growing new growth from where I clipped it. And like I said, they bloom at about 3 feet tall. Blossoms start to form in January, and then they'll open up mid to late spring. A new addition to the garden is a hibiscus hybrid summer in paradise. They claim it's hardy from zones 4 to 9. So, based on the fleshiness of the stems, I would say this is going to die back in the winter and then regrow and bloom come spring. But these are just gorgeous blooms. And also a new addition to the garden is a peacock orchid, Gladiolus murreale. It is supposed to be hardy to zone 7, so hopefully we don't get any more of those minus 16 winters. So thanks for coming along, and we will hopefully talk to you later. Remember to check out the link for my Etsy store in the description. Thanks for watching.